Guys, we're here again, talking about forgiveness. I'm going to ask you if you can just jump in and tell us a story about somebody who went through an ordeal, really, and how forgiveness helped free them. I think it'd be good for us to hear.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, this is a lady called Corrie ten Boom, who, in the Second World War in Holland, her and her family, they were Christians, they actually hid Jews, which of course they themselves were at risk, because the Jews were going to be sent to the concentration camps, and anybody who held them would have ended up with had the same fate. Eventually somebody betrayed Corrie ten Boom and she was arrested and she was interrogated, and part of the interrogation her arm was broken. After the war, she met the Gestapo guard who had actually broken her arm, and she found herself in that position of God speaking to her and saying, you must offer the hand of forgiveness to your perpetrator. And the hand was the right arm, which had been broken. And she said it was the most difficult thing she did. She believed it was only the power of God that enabled her to move her arm. But in offering the hand, the former Gestapo guard was able to receive forgiveness and repent, to say how sorry he was, he broke down. And as a result of that and the relationship that followed, because he then wanted to know about her faith, what had led her actions to stand alongside the Jews, to not bow down under interrogation and so on, he became a Christian. And because the life that she had, he wanted something of. And it was that act of forgiveness, that literal handshake of forgiveness, which changed him.
It's almost like a sign of her saying, you didn't break me, isn't it?
That's
like,
right.
You know, I'm still here.
Yes.
To the point where I can even extend love to you. That must have really shook him.
And I think that, and this is what we fail to realize as Christians, is that unforgiveness is a stink, not only towards ourselves but to other people. People smell unforgiveness, and I think that it's very easy to see. And I believe that true forgiveness is such a witness. It's amazing. You know what I'm saying? It's and we wonder why we're so ineffective. People hear us moan about people who do things against us all week long, and like, well, you're just like me. You know what's so different about you? And I think that the ability to forgive is one of the unique elements. I'm not saying that forgive says, yo, I'm cool with you, unique elements of Christianity, a forgiveness which is actually inhuman. It's inhuman because the forgiveness does not stop at certain points. It doesn't stop at, okay, right, if you do this to me, then you've gone past the mark. There's no done too much. The Bible doesn't say you've done too much. You can't, there's extreme. I read a book, Martyrs, Book of Martyrs, Jesus Freak with De.ci.pher put together, whatever, and there's so many cases of people being abused physically, sexually, and all manner of things over the past 2,000 years, for Christ's sake, but yet they forgive the perpetrators.
I read one of those stories.
And it's amazing.
Where the woman was literally being raped.
Yeah, I know.
While it was happening.
Yeah, I know. That's what
she's looking at him saying, "I forgive you." I'm like, it didn't even make sense. It didn't make no sense. It's like I heard one guy. I went to a training the other day for like Christian apologetics, and there's a guy there who goes around the world talking, and he went to one place where there's like genocide.
Okay.
And he's talking to one of the survivors, whose whole family, siblings, everyone being wiped out, and there's a young boy, and the young boy was there with another guy standing behind him. And while he was talking to him and asking him his story, he got curious about the man that was standing behind the young boy. So he's asking the young boy, who's this guy behind him? And the young boy wouldn't say to him who it was. I think he was just too engrossed within the story. And eventually, you got the young boy to tell him who it was, and he said, "Oh, this guy behind me is the one that killed my family, killed everyone." I'm like, whoa, okay. He said that wasn't even the thing that shocked him, and this apologist, the guy I listened to, said this was one of the greatest Christians he met because of the story he was telling him. Because the boy turned around to him and said to him, not only did he kill the whole family, but he's now my father because I've got no family. So it's almost like I've inherited him. And I'm listening to this thinking, this don't make no sense because this guy's wiped out your whole family. If you've got an excuse not to forgive, there's one. There is one on the plate. He took out everybody. And yet he's adopted him as his father. And you know, how do you fathom things like that? I think one thing that's come to me, and I've heard from people say, is that forgiveness, it frees yourself from your own prison.
Yeah.
Like Tori there, you know, Corrie Ten Boom, she felt a certain way about the God, but for when she shook his hand and he was broken and she was broken, she was just let go from that turmoil, that torment and all that. And I think it's a good thing to know that forgiveness often frees up yourself, not the perpetrator, but yourself from the anger and bitterness that we hold.
I think that I'm going to be proper off the cuff here. I'm going to give a worldly example of a clear thing. Everyone's watched the film X-Men, yeah?
Yeah.
You've seen X-Men and you've seen Magneto and Xavier. Now, Magneto, the reason why he don't trust humans and everything like crazy is because of his own forgiveness from all the way back at the concentration camps. And then his whole perspective of humanity, is warped and affected by, you know, and this is a clear example of, if you don't deal with that, your whole rest of your life will go on a journey that could be slightly off or totally left or right, all because of something. And a lot of these things happen in our formative years, and a lot of people end up in a certain place at the age of 50. At the age of 25, they're slightly off. But when they get to the age of 50, they are totally and utterly off the track. And I think that's a clear example. I know it sounds crazy, off the cuff with Magneto.
No, that's a good example.
And I think it's a perfect example for, you know what, guys, if we don't deal with this, and I see it from day to day, and I think that, as the song says, count your blessings, name them one by one. Count the blessings, what people do to you. Count the blessings, how you've been blessed throughout the day. But when you get one person does one bad thing to you, you almost, it's wow. I've been so blessed, and I'm highly favoured. It's cool.
Bruce talks about
That's right. And also, the Bible talks about, to a point when Jesus said about blessing your enemy.
Okay, bless those who curse you.
Curse you, beatitude. Where you get to a point where you're not after revenge, but you change. It's about your mind being transformed and changed to a point where you can actually ask God to bless the person who's done something. And then you're actually, what you're doing, you've made a choice to ask God for something, a blessing for that person. And it's a process of letting go of what you've been carrying. You're no longer, carrying that, because you replaced it by asking God for a blessing. And it's a choice you've made to ask God for that blessing. Again, experiments are done where, these are by, secular people, of you write one good thing down about somebody somebody's hurt you. You write one good thing about them, or possible 3. That's what the world does to enable people to sort of come back on track. So how much more should we be doing? God has given us a way of doing it. One is by actually asking God's blessing, but in doing that, asking God to release us from what the things that we've been hanging on to, rather like a bell rope. A bell makes a sound ding dong, ding dong. In my culture, we talk about when you're in a fight with someone, it's a real ding dong going on. We need to stop the ding dong, but you've got to let go of the bell in order to stop the ding dong.
I like that example.
And I would say as well, there's an element of heart in that. When some people, I've seen people say that, listen, I pray for the people that done me bad. And in their heart, the actions on a day-to-day basis shows so many issues to them, but said, you know what, I pray for them anyway. You know what I mean? And I think that's, yes, we can pray for people and so-called bless them, but if our heart,
they're not doing it from the heart.
They're doing it from a religious perspective, not as a true.
So the actions could be contradicting it.
Exactly. You'll see that anyway, but we have to be careful that it is a choice, and we do things to bless them, but blessing them isn't just getting a religious prayer out in the morning and saying that, going through the list of everyone in church and says, they did me wrong, but God, I tell you what, bless them, Lord.
If we took seriously the one prayer that Jesus gave us, he said, forgive us. Jesus prayer. Lord, forgive me my sins as I forgive those who sin against me. There it is. That's from the Lord himself.
There's a lot of things from the Lord himself. And there's one thing I also want to add with the 7 times 70, where if you think about it numerically and doing it, it's just not possible, really, in terms of numbers. And I personally, I think it's pointing to the state of, you need to be in this position. So you're almost in a state of forgiveness, always. So it makes it easier to make the choice, because you're already in the position. You're already ready to forgive before you've been hurt, before you've been wrong done. But being there is not easy, and that is the whole thing about doing your Christian duties and doing the walk and reading your word and seeking God and being filled with the Spirit and all these kind of things. In terms of being in a place where if something bad really happens, you're in a place to show God and forgive. And the world's just like, wow, how'd you do that? Because you live that way. It's not just something you switch on because you're being hurt, which I think is why it gets so hard, because it's not mechanical. I don't think it is anyway. I think that's what Jesus was pointing to when he says 7 times 70. It's like, Peter, it's not a number game. It's not a number game. It's just a place you need to be in. And when the light bulb goes on and you get that, you'll realise it's not a number game. It's just something you have to live out. So I just wanted to add that about 7 times 70. So much more you could say. So much more you could say, but
you have to forgive.
You have to forgive.
You have to forgive.
I think it's a given. You have to, but do it with the power, the love, the wisdom of God, and then you have a chance.